What's good? It's your boy Fanon. All right, I'm a little late to this show because I was busy last night. So when the news came out that Gennady Golovkin had been stripped by the IBF, I wasn't able to make a video right now, but I'm going to address it in one this morning. It's hard. I'm hard pressed to draw a conclusion here about this question. Which stripping of a champion is worse? One, like where Gervonta Davis got stripped of his belt for not making weight on the scale, or Grizel Corrales losing his WBA super featherweight title against Machado on the scales for not making weight. Or Keith Thurman being pushed into a mandatory position, into a position where he has to vacate his belt, as he did for the WBC belt because of inactivity. And I'm not a prospect for him facing anybody. Or Gennady Golovkin being stripped for cherry picking. I'm hard pressed on the answer to that question. I think it's Gennady Golovkin, or somebody being stripped for performance enhancing. That's the other one. Or somebody being stripped from using PEDs, like Luis Neri. I don't think Luis Neri was stripped by the WBC, but Ogawa. That's a good example. Ogawa for the IBF super featherweight title. So was it Ogawa, Corrales, Gervonta Davis, or Gennady Golovkin? Which is the worst of all of those? Now, I'm going to discuss that. That's the subject matter of this, and I'll go through the details of Gennady Golovkin being humiliated by the IBF. Before I do that, please subscribe to the channel, like and share the videos. Appreciate everybody that supports the cause on Patreon, Venmo, and the super chats during the live streams that we do. Definitely check us out on our next live stream. And man, thank you for everybody for supporting the cause. Please share the videos. We very much would appreciate it if you would do that. Spread the word and help grow the conversations and spread conversations about real boxing talk, and where you're not going to just get the usual politically correct conversations that take place in the larger media outlets. Now, that said, I'm going to start with the conclusions. Gennady Golovkin is the worst one out of that. Now, losing weight, hey, you were a couple pounds over, or you just blow the weight off or whatever, that's one thing. But for you to you have to really be a cherry picker to get stripped for it. Because there's been a lot of people that take boxing matches where they're not competitive, but to actually lose your title because of it, that is something serious. See, and it's not just that he didn't face Deverenchenko, because that's one thing, right? If it was that he didn't face his mandatory, that would be one thing, but that's not what it is. He was stripped of his title because he fought in an unsanctioned contest within his weight class. The IBF said that the matchup with Vanis Martirosyan was not worthy of being a middleweight championship bout. Now, the WBA said it was okay. The WBC said it was okay. But the IBF said, no, you have to face your mandatory. Your mandatory is Deverenchenko. And now look, Gennady, because we like you. You've been our champion for a while. We get to if you act like you got some sense and can make this bout with Canelo Alvarez, we can make some big old sanctioning fees. Look, hey man, we're willing to work with you. We're willing to work with you, Gennady. If you will say But we got our standards. We got our standards. As long as you say you're willing to get in the ring with Deverenchenko and you agree by August 3rd, then we will retroactively we will as long as you agree, excuse me, he was agreeing that he would get into a ring with Deverenchenko by August 3rd, right? It's like, look, if you agree that you will face Deverenchenko and have a real match against somebody we know is a real competition for you, then we will retroactively sanction the bout that you had. All right, we'll bypass the fact that you just got in there against another. You put our belt up, our belt, the IBF belt up again against somebody that shouldn't ever got a shot at it. Right? We overlooked it. They overlooked it with Kell Brook, a welterweight. They overlooked it with Kell Brook, who was a welterweight. Then they overlooked it, of course. You know, I guess there's an argument that Canelo Alvarez, he's moving up in weight. But look, they've overlooked it. How many times have they overlooked Gennady Golovkin facing somebody that had no chance of winning? Let's count. So you have Vanis Martirosyan, Kell Brook, Dominic Wade, Willie Monroe Jr., Marco Antonio Rubio, Daniel Gill, my favorite, Ishida, Gabriel Rosado. Most of these guys are 140. Most of those guys have either fought at 147 pounds or 154 pounds and are not real middleweights. And, you know, so this is just, it's easy for me. You know, as far as what is the worst, it's the guy that gets stripped for cherry picking, because, you know, there's a cherry picking in and of itself means that you have a ridiculous advantage over somebody, and it's not really about, you know, it's not really a fair matchup. There's no suspense to it. You know exactly what's going to happen into it, and it pretty much is just you going out there for a payday. And when you have in championship bouts against heavy punchers and you're cherry picking, you're not only just facing smaller guys, but you're cherry picking, but you're getting in there against guys that even if they were the same size as you, wouldn't even have the ability to beat you. If they were the same size as you, it would still be something that they shouldn't sanction. That's just ridiculous. In this particular fight with Vanis Martirosyan, there's no way that bout should have been made. There's so many other middleweights that are in that division that have the ability to create a serious competition, that to allow Gennady Golovkin to face Vanis Martirosyan was ridiculous. It was ridiculous to begin with. And the only logic is, the only way that you can defend that matchup at all is if you are actually within the camp of Gennady Golovkin and you start looking at it from his monetary considerations. And we as boxing fans, a lot of times, and I do this myself, I love to talk about numbers and you know, who's making what and how many people come to the show and all those type of things. I personally think that is a very entertaining thing to talk about. I really, really do enjoy talking about those, but that's not the purpose of a boxing match. That a purpose of a boxing match is to see who the best boxer is. To see who the guy it gets into the ring, who is the best between the two. If you already know the answer to the question before it starts, the bout is not really worth making. If you know, and not only do you know, when you know, Vanis Martirosyan sat on the bench. Vanis Martirosyan sat on the bench for coming off of a loss, 2 years coming off of a loss, never been in that weight class before, and was a former sparring partner of Gennady Golovkin. So Gennady Golovkin knew what was going to happen. Abel Sanchez knew what was going to happen. HBO knew what was going to happen. Vanis Marta Rosen knew what was going to happen. People, anybody that knew anything about boxing knew what was going to happen in that bout before that bout started. So for any of them to sanction that bout and say that bout was okay to have was ridiculous. But so that's why I say that is worse than just missing weight. Because you're really not only are you not, you're really not defending a championship. You're just going out there to beat somebody. You're just going out there to put on a facade. So that's worse to me than missing weight by a pound, but missing weight by a pound or two. As far as the PEDs, it's the same thing, because you're getting in there against a guy that it's unfair competition, and nobody would care if you put anything in your system if it didn't give you an unfair competition, if it didn't create a situation where the matchup wasn't fair. But in this situation, it's not even like somebody could do anything to change it. Vanis Marta Rosen could have been on whatever he wanted to be on. It wouldn't have mattered, because he's just not good enough. He's just not big enough, not good enough of a boxer to be able to do anything, to be able to effectively defend himself. And unlike the situation where you have somebody that's on PEDs, everybody knows it. So it's not even entertaining. I mean, God dog, at least when you don't know somebody's on it, you'd be like, well, I don't know what the boxing fan doesn't even get anything out of it. So, that's your boy Gennady Golovkin. And I can't think of I can't think of a worse way to lose your title than to have it taken from you for cherry picking, for excessive cherry picking. That's what that means. An unsanctioned bout, participating in an unsanctioned bout. Taking a bout, we said, no, you cannot take our belt in the ring with this dude. It is a risk to the boxers, and it is a terrible look for our organization, because we, the IBF, want to have some semblance of respectability in the boxing world. And your cherry picking ways, Gennady, have stood in the way of that. It's absolutely amazing, man. And people have been saying that and the ironic thing is, people have been saying that for a very, very long time. They have talked about this, and they've talked about Gennady Golovkin, bum hunting and, padding his record. Now, how is this record now going to stand up against Bernard Hopkins? Right? This whole myth, because the dude's career at this point in time looks like a complete and utter myth. And and the crazy thing is, I bet you, now some people have a good opinion of the IBF, and the IBF really standing by their rules more than anybody else. But if Gennady Golovkin would have just taken the Canelo Alvarez bout, if he would have taken the Canelo Alvarez bout as quickly as he could, maybe he could have done this. But I bet you he goes back on that. Hey, I'll take that bout now. I'll take that bout now. Because he just got as embarrassed. He should be more embarrassed than Canelo Alvarez should. Because at least Canelo Alvarez can make an argument that it was bad meat, that wasn't the case. I'm now part of the program, and he can go out and have some good results and all that. But you can't come back from getting stripped from cherry picking. You can't do it. And it's funny, this article said, some of the things in this article, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but some of these things in this article is funny. He said, unified middleweight champion Gennady Golovkin's quest to capture all four recognized titles at 160 just took a step backwards. Golovkin, the WBA WBC champion, was stripped of his IBF title on Wednesday for failing to adhere to the stipulations of an exception he was granted by the sanctioning body before his May 5th bout with Vanis Marta Rosen. After his originally scheduled rematch with lineal champion Canelo Alvarez fell apart following following a pair of failed tests and a 6-month suspension for the Mexican star. Golovkin elected to face Martirosyan as a late replacement instead of his IBF mandatory challenger, Sergey Deverenchenko. Although the IBF wasn't willing to sanction the Martirosyan bout as a title bout, it agreed not to strip Golovkin, provided he make his mandatory defense against Deverenchenko, a 32-year-old native of Ukraine, within 90 days. Golovkin's 36 requested an additional exception during an IBF hearing in person on May 22nd in New Jersey, in hopes of expressing how important it was to him to keep his titles. Though because he had not agreed in writing to a bout with dangerous Deverenchenko by August 3rd, the IBF went the way of stripping Gennady of GGG due to his participation in an unsanctioned contest within his weight class, according to the letters sent to both boxers. The IBF was expected to order a vacant bout between Deverenchenko, who was promoted by Lou DiBella, and the next available contender in the rankings, which I believe that is Demetrius Andrade. Although Golovkin's goal has long been to join Bernard Hopkins and Jermaine Taylor as the only boxers in middleweight history to hold all 4 recognized titles at the same time, the timing of his mandatory bout against the high-risk, low-reward Deverenchenko clashed with his hopes of securing a September pay-per-view rematch with Alvarez. How about he didn't think he could win? Okay, let's not jump over that. Let's jump to the fact that maybe he didn't think he could win. Maybe he didn't think he could beat Deverenchenko. He had a hard enough time against Daniel Jacobs. He had a hard time against Daniel Jacobs, and I think he lost to Canelo Alvarez. Maybe he didn't want to get in with Deverenchenko. Yeah, I'm sure high risk, low reward. It ain't about that, man. It's not about that. Boxing shouldn't be about that. It should be about having the best, as far as what the boxing fans should look at and what the sanctioning body should look at. I know money comes into play because everybody's got to pay their bills, but I don't care. What this is ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And I'm wondering what all the Gennady Golovkin, not real, because he doesn't really have fans. I don't believe he really has fans. Or the people that support him that really just, they support him, but they don't really care too much about boxing because they can't care too much about boxing if you make any type of excuse for this, because there is absolutely no chance, man, absolutely no chance that other people would get away, that the same people would support other people doing this. This is just like this. Well, it's not as bad as Amanda. You're the champion, man. You're the champion. So anyway, it is what it is. I can't say I'm loving it because, it is what it is. And it's not necessarily a good thing for boxing. But my hat goes off to the IBF for standing up and saying, you know what? We're done with you, man. We're done with you. And you're not giving us the Canelo Alvarez bout and that money. And you acting funny, asking for 50% of money you shouldn't be getting. Get up out of here, man. Like you couldn't be on something. But anyway, he's on cherry. Yeah. Canelo Alvarez might have been on some PEDs, but this dude's on cherry pick juice. And I argue that cherry picking is just as bad as PEDs. It's absolutely every bit as worse. It's every bit as bad. It might even be worse. Because at least when you have, it's like he's beating up on little kids. Kell Brook, he defended his title against Kell Brook. Kell Brook is a 147-pound boxer. 147-pound boxer. Canelo Alvarez is 154. He's got to eat all kind of steaks and hamburgers in order to get his weight up and be a 160-pounder. Then he fights Vanis Martirosyan. Now, he fought Kasim Uma. Kasim Uma, of course, was before he had the IBF title, right? But he fought Ishida. Ishida's another 154-pounder. I mean, this guy has a track record of getting in the ring with guys that are not big enough, or Daniel Gill, Curtis Stevenson. Come on, man, it's a joke. And it's not like it's a situation like it is in the heavyweight division where they're, like you can look at Tyson Fury's record and go down there and be like, oh, who are all these guys he beat? There aren't very many boxers in the heavyweight division. It's very top heavy. That's not the case in the middleweight division. But yet he was claiming as if he was the one that everybody was running from him. And but then when people stop, and first of all, I don't know if anybody, the way that this fraud looks, doesn't even think that it might be the case nobody ever was running from him. Anyway, it is what it is, and with that, I'm